He loved her in shadows, the forbidden romance that led Yu Menglong into darkness. It began where the light couldn't reach, somewhere between longing and silence, fame and fear. Yu Menglong, the man whose voice melted through screens and whose eyes could tell stories without words, lived a life painted in soft hues of mystery. To the world, he was a symbol of calm, of artistry, of grace. But beneath that serene surface was a heart that had been quietly burning, for a love that was never meant to be, and for a woman who became both his muse and his undoing. Those who knew him closely said he changed in the final months. His laughter became quieter, his public appearances fewer, his once bright smile fading into something fragile. Fans saw it too, the weight in his eyes, the way his performances felt drenched in emotion deeper than any script could write. And somewhere in that quiet descent, hidden between fame and forbidden love, Yu Menglong's light dimmed until it vanished completely. The story begins years ago, when Yu was at the height of his career. He was adored, the golden boy of Chinese television, the singer whose ballads turned midnight drives into therapy. But behind the curtain, his heart had already chosen someone he wasn't allowed to love. She was from the same world, beautiful, ambitious, and bound by the same unspoken rules of the industry. Their connection was instant but dangerous. It was said they met on a set they never spoke of again. Long filming nights turned into quiet conversations, then into glances too heavy to ignore. In an industry where image was everything, love was often a luxury, and for Yu Menglong, it became a secret burden. Their love lived in shadows, coded messages, late-night calls, and fleeting moments between fame's blinding lights. He wrote songs that no one knew were about her. He posted cryptic captions that only she could understand. And in the few photographs where their eyes met, hidden in group shots or behind-the-scenes clips, fans later noticed something hauntingly tender. Love was there, but so was fear, because she belonged to someone else. Not in the way hearts belong, but in the way careers are controlled by management, contracts, reputations, and power. Her relationship, official and well-publicized, was part of her image. Yu Menglong knew that stepping into that world meant war, not just with the industry, but with everything he had built. Still, he couldn't stay away. Those who worked with him recalled how he began writing differently, his lyrics darker, his melodies slower. His once polished smile sometimes slipped into something raw, something real. He became obsessed with silence, with disappearing after shoots, with sitting alone for hours, staring at nothing. His manager once said that Yu wasn't sad, he was haunted. And perhaps he was, because loving someone you can't have turns every moment into both heaven and hell. Every message deleted, every gaze stolen, every touch remembered becomes both comfort and curse. She was the muse he couldn't name, the woman he couldn't keep. When the rumors began, he denied everything, not out of guilt, but out of protection. The industry is cruel to lovers, especially those who dare to cross invisible lines. He would rather be seen as lonely than expose her to the chaos of public judgment. But secrets have a way of turning heavy. As the months passed, the woman he loved began to pull away, not because she didn't feel the same, but because she couldn't afford to. Her silence was her way of surviving. His silence, however, became his undoing. Friends noticed he started drinking more, sleeping less. He stopped writing. He avoided calls. Even on set, he would often be found standing in corners, eyes distant, as if listening to something only he could hear. The gentle warmth that once defined him was replaced by an invisible chill. The last time anyone saw them together was in a dimly lit restaurant, where they sat facing each other in silence. No smiles, no laughter, just two souls who knew their time had ended. That night, he drove home alone, and that was when the darkness began to grow. He stopped appearing in public shortly after. His last social media post was strange, poetic, and unreadable to most. Some loves were never meant to be lived in daylight. Fans thought it was just a lyric, but those close to him knew it was a goodbye wrapped in metaphor. Behind closed doors, Yu Menglong fought himself. He had fame, money, admiration, everything except the one thing he truly wanted. Love, for him, was not a reward. It was a punishment, and as he withdrew from the world, the woman he once loved tried to reach out, but by then he had gone too far inward. He would replay their memories like unfinished songs, the sound of her laughter in a rehearsal room, the way she'd whisper his name when no one was listening, the late-night calls where they'd talk about escaping it all, but never did. Love became an echo that followed him everywhere. When his team finally broke the news of his passing, the world froze. The headlines spoke of tragedy, of mystery, of another star lost too soon. But what fans didn't know, what they were never supposed to know, was that Yu Menglong's death wasn't just about exhaustion or stress. It was about heartbreak. A forbidden love had consumed him from within, quietly, completely. Somewhere in the files of his phone, found after his death, was a voice memo. Short, barely audible, but his last words were simple. I hope she knows I waited. No name, no detail, just that, a whisper from a man who had loved too deeply, too quietly, too alone. The woman, when she heard, reportedly vanished from the public eye for weeks. Her management called it personal reasons. But those close to her said she cried until she couldn't anymore. Because love doesn't disappear with death, it lingers in the spaces it once filled. Fans began piecing together his story, reading into lyrics, revisiting interviews, searching for meaning in his final appearances. They noticed how often he spoke about truth, about freedom, about light and shadow. He was telling his story all along. We just weren't listening. In the final days before his passing, Yu Menglong spent hours alone in his studio. A candle burned beside his notebook, and on one page, written in careful handwriting, were the words, "If love must hide, let it at least be remembered." That line became the heart of his posthumous legacy, shared, quoted, and immortalized by fans across the world. It was a love letter disguised as a confession, a final testament to the woman who became both his dream and his destruction. The world still doesn't know her name. Maybe it's better that way. Maybe some loves are meant to stay in shadows, not because they were shameful, but because they were too pure for the world to handle. Yu Menglong's story isn't just about romance. It's about how love can both save and destroy. It's about how even the brightest souls can fade when forced to live in silence. He gave everything, his art, his honesty, his heart. And in the end, it was the one thing he couldn't say out loud that consumed him. Today, when fans play his old songs, they listen differently. They hear the cracks in his voice, the tremble in his tone. They see the sorrow hiding behind his gentle smile. Every lyric feels like a confession. Every melody sounds like goodbye. He loved her in shadows, quietly, endlessly, fatally. And in doing so, he showed the world the cruel beauty of forbidden love. There are love stories that make you believe in miracles, and there are those that make you believe in ghosts. Yu Menglong's was the latter. Long after his passing, those who loved him, family, fans, and silent witnesses, could still feel the presence of a man who never stopped loving, even when that love turned into pain. His story didn't end the night he died. It lingers in whispers and songs, and in the memories of a love that dared not show its face. The truth is, his forbidden romance wasn't just a secret. It was a wound he carried quietly, beautifully, until it consumed him. The woman at the center of it was someone who once described love as a storm I can't run from. Those close to her said that Yu was her calm, her safety in a world of flashing lights and endless expectations. But safety can become suffocating when it can't exist in the open. They used to meet in places where cameras couldn't find them, a small lakeside retreat outside Beijing, dim coffee shops, hidden corners of rehearsal rooms. Their conversations weren't dramatic or wild. They were gentle, stolen, heavy with what couldn't be said. Sometimes they'd sit together for hours without words, just the sound of their breathing filling the silence. Yu once told a close friend that he felt, alive only when she looked at him. But the same love that gave him life also took it away, because every time they parted, he said, it felt like losing her forever. And eventually he did. The moment everything changed was on a rainy night, one of those nights that feel too cinematic to be real. He had waited for her, the way he always did, by the lake. She didn't come. Instead, a message arrived, short, cold, and final. We can't do this anymore. No explanation, no goodbye, no promise of tomorrow. He read it once, twice, and then again, until the words blurred into the rain running down his screen. That was the night he stopped believing in happy endings. That was the night the shadows won. From then on, everything about him became quieter. His songs turned melancholic, his performances slower, as if every lyric was a memory bleeding through. In interviews, when asked about love, he would smile faintly and say, "Some loves are too heavy for daylight." No one realized how literal that was. Those close to him recalled how he began carrying a small notebook everywhere. Inside were fragments, half-finished songs, lines of poetry, and sketches of faceless women under dim streetlights. One note, written weeks before his death, read, "She taught me to love silence. Now I live in it." It wasn't just heartbreak. It was the slow collapse of a man trying to live without the only person who saw him beyond the fame. His friends tried to reach him, but he always brushed them off with soft smiles. To them, he looked fine, just tired. But behind that calm exterior was a storm no one else could see. In the days leading to his final hours, Menglong was seen walking the streets alone late at night. The security footage from near his apartment showed him staring up at the city skyline, motionless, for nearly an hour. Some fans who lived nearby claimed they heard him humming a familiar tune. One of his own songs, but slower, sadder, almost like a lullaby to himself. That song, Under the Quiet Moon, was written years earlier during the height of his secret relationship. Its lyrics now sound eerily prophetic. If the world forgets us, let the moon remember. Fans began replaying it after his death, realizing it wasn't just a love song, it was a confession hidden in melody. Rumors spread quickly after his passing, that he left letters, that he had written one final message for her, that his last words were about love. The truth was simpler, but sadder. On his desk, beside his unfinished music sheet, was a Polaroid of her, slightly faded, edges curled. Behind it, scribbled in his handwriting, "Still waiting for your call." The woman, whose name remains unspoken to this day, never made a statement. But her eyes told the story when she appeared weeks later at an award ceremony. She looked fragile, pale, trembling, barely holding back tears as a song he once sang played softly in the background. And when his face appeared on the big screen, she turned away, hiding her expression from the cameras. It was the reaction of someone whose heart would never heal. Insiders whispered that she visited his memorial late at night, long after fans had gone home. Witnesses claimed they saw her kneeling before his photograph, whispering something no one could hear, before disappearing into the dark. It was the kind of grief that words could never carry. Even now, years after his death, fans continued to speculate about who she was. Some think she was an actress, others a singer, others believe she was someone outside the industry, a woman from another life he kept hidden from fame's harsh glare. But perhaps it doesn't matter who she was. What matters is that she was his, even if the world was never allowed to know. His story became a modern-day tragedy, a love that couldn't exist, a man who couldn't let go. He was the artist who smiled for millions but cried for one. And in the cruelest twist of fate, it was that same love that gave him his most beautiful work and also his deepest sorrow. Years later, one of his unreleased demos was leaked online, a raw, unedited recording of his voice singing a song titled, "In the Dark, I Found You." It wasn't perfect, his voice cracked in places, the melody unfinished, but it was real. The lyrics were hauntingly simple. They said love should be light, but ours was the dark that felt right. I'd rather lose the sun. then live where you're not. It went viral instantly. Fans flooded comment sections with heartbreak and disbelief. Some said they could feel his pain through the screen. Others wrote that they finally understood him, the man who loved in whispers, who smiled in public but wept in silence. MENGLONG'S legacy is not just in his work, but in the emotion he left behind. He taught his audience that love isn't always beautiful, that sometimes it's a quiet ache that never goes away. And though his story ended too soon, the echoes of his forbidden love still ripple through every song, every fan tribute, every tear shed in his memory. There's a saying in one of his interviews that now feels like a prophecy. Love doesn't need to be seen to be real. Sometimes the unseen burns brighter. He loved her in shadows, but his story now shines everywhere, in the hearts of those who believe that even love born in darkness can still leave a light behind. And maybe, somewhere beyond this world, where no cameras follow and no secrets need to hide, he finally holds her hand again, no longer in the dark, but in the peace he searched for all along.